The DCU is now 1 year old and off to a relatively good start. I wanted to make rankings for this universe, but I didn't feel like it fit to include the loose canon projects, meaning there's only 3 projects, so not much to rank. Instead, I decided to make one dedicated video going through short ranking after short ranking until I covered just about everything that I thought was significant enough to be ranked. These 3 projects are all different mediums of animated series, live action movie, and live action series, so when comparing them to each other, I'm obviously going to consider those differences, what sets them apart. Anyways, there are a lot of rankings to cover, so let's not waste any more time. Comment each ranking of yours in the comments down below. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and become a member in the Noble tier above for early access to videos, or the King tier for a special shout out. Thanks to these members for the extra support, and remember, these are just my opinions. Leave yours in the comments. Peacemaker Season 2 was a bit of a disappointment, which didn't quite live up to the first season. It started strong with an interesting premise and a lot of interesting things being set up, but it took forever to move the plot along, only for the plot to grind to a screeching halt quicker than what I felt was satisfying. There are some very emotional moments, great fight scenes, and top-tier comedy, but at the same time, I didn't quite connect to the main romance, which was given a very large focus, and I really didn't like how little the heroes wore their costumes. And then the finale makes the series feel more like setup for the future rather than its own thing, which might end up paying off down the line, but for this season, I'm unfortunately a little disappointed. For Creature Commandos, my expectations were a bit lower, and they were basically met. The series has a unique structure in how every episode contains a flashback, but those flashbacks were often the highlights of the episode since the main plot left a bit to be desired. The animation, voice acting, and music are all really great, the world building is immaculate, and the characters are mostly delightful. All in all, Creature Commandos is pretty much good in everything, except for the main plot and main villain, which are lackluster to say the least. Superman was just about everything I wanted it to be, a perfectly cast, well-directed, and well-written emotional ride that fundamentally understands the character of Superman. Whether he's arguing with Lois about what's right, being blindsided by the truth of his parents, or being given an emotional but encouraging talk from his real parents, Superman himself never truly wavers from his base morality and kindness, and that is perfectly conveyed in the writing and acting. With great and innovative action, fantastic music, and an incredible foundation to a larger universe, and an incredible main villain, Superman was the DCU's perfect start. Ilana Rostovich is such a nothing burger of a character. I kinda get what Gunn was going for, the idea that the terrifying monsters are good and the gorgeous princess is bad, sure. It just wasn't executed very well, because even now I do not understand who this character is, what are her motivations aside from just being evil, and how is she exactly a threat? How does this character possibly take over the world? Many things were left unanswered, I was left unsatisfied, and Ilana Rostovich remains maybe the worst thing in the DCU so far. Rick Flag Sr. can, I guess, be considered the main villain of Peacemaker Season 2, but it's honestly up for debate as to whether there even was a main villain. Flag in this season is kind of like the opposite to Ilana Rostovich, where he has a very clear motivation and very clear threat level, both of which are compelling, but he doesn't have enough to do in the story. It felt more so like Earth X was the main story and Flag was the secondary threat, but then you can't exactly say that Earth X was the main villain and it was Flag, the secondary threat, that was the focus of the finale. I guess it's just a different, non-traditional structure, but at the same time, I was left unsatisfied by that. With the years of foundation that this built up, I think the rivalry between Flag and Peacemaker would have been more than enough for a compelling season, but that really wasn't the focus. Alright, here we go, this is how you do it, an honest-to-goodness main villain, and a fantastic one at that. Gunn's writing and directing alongside Holt's acting makes for what is easily the best big screen portrayal of Lex Luthor, just a dastardly, conniving, hate-filled, bold genius. Lex Luthor to an absolute T, and there's a reason Luthor is so famous and beloved. You do him well, and he's one of the greatest antagonists in fiction. This Luthor isn't just the best DCU main villain, but I think an old-timer comic book movie villain as well. This particular list might be a bit more controversial because in 4th and last place, I'm putting Peacemaker himself. Chris was a fantastic protagonist in Season 1. He doesn't have quite the same charisma or charm, he feels less like a comic book character, he feels more like just a person, and doesn't go through as good of an arc. What really bothered me more than anything is that he barely wore his suit, which I think was indicative of the issues I had with him and the season as a whole. As the main protagonist of the first half of the season, Flag was likable and badass, badass, if at times a bit stupid. I don't know what it was in particular, but I liked him for the most part. However, he quickly started to fall off in importance and eventually was put out of commission entirely, replaced by the Bride as the main character. He served his purpose and it worked, but it's definitely nothing special. But for both characters, that's perfectly fine. It's arguably a positive considering this is an ensemble cast series. Still, the Bride acts as a pretty straightforward badass with not too much personality who goes through this small arc of going from being extremely standoffish to finally letting someone in, genuinely caring for them. Overall, she was good enough that I am looking forward to see more of her in the next season. Yet again, we jump up in quality as we reach Superman, but that's to be expected when one of these characters is the most famous superhero of all time, and the others are relatively unknowns. David Cornsweet is perfectly cast, the suit is great, and the writing is perfect as we get a relatable, kind, and caring Superman who acts as the perfect flat character arc, challenged by the world and a change in perspective in how he views himself, only to finally stay true to his core principles. I'm super excited to see the Man of Tomorrow again. Okay, so this is a bit of a technicality because I think if you just took the trench coat off of the suit and added a cape, since it doesn't seem like there is one, this suit might have just been number one on this list. It looks incredible. Unfortunately, we only ever saw it with the trench coat on, and it's being replaced in the Supergirl movie, meaning the trench coat is officially a part of the design. Again, it would be easy to turn this suit into an S-tier suit, but that's not what we have here. This is what we got, and obviously a trench coat definitely lowers the overall design quality by enough to take it from probably what would have been first place to last place. The Judo Master suit is nothing like the comics, but that's also completely fine. I mean, who really cares? But it also is very silly looking, or at least the helmet is. The rest of the suit is actually really nice, but the helmet is so silly, purposefully so, that it's here on the list. The Mr. Terrific base design is a bit weird for Hawkgirl, as while the suit has a nice design, the jacket doesn't feel all too necessary, and the white rather than green makes her a lot less recognizable as Hawkgirl. She does not have a Hawkgirl color scheme, which is weird because Green Lantern does have a Green Lantern color scheme. The helmet looks decent, but I think I'd prefer white eyes. Overall, the suit works for being a Lord Tech version of the Hawkgirl suit. It just so happens that Hawkgirl's design fits the Lord Tech scheme the least. Much more fitting for a leather jacket since he's always had one, the Guy Gardner suit more so feels like a redesign rather than a completely different suit like Hawkgirl that sticks to the same color scheme as the comics, just with a noticeably less amount of green. It's higher than Hawkgirl because it's certainly closer to being the classic Guy Gardner suit, which I do hope we soon see. Stolen from his Earth X counterpart, the alternative Peacemaker suit kind of did the opposite of growing on me. Initially I thought it was a straight upgrade, but as the series went on, I quickly began to miss the original helmet, which I think is far better. The suit itself is basically on par, maybe a bit better. Like, I don't really know which one I like more, but I think the helmet is so much better on the original that it really doesn't matter. This one is lower on the list. The Vigilante suit, which obviously originated in the DCU, is a pretty much perfect live-action interpretation of the classic comic book design, with the same color scheme and design, but with small tweaks to make it look functional. It entirely works as Vigilante consistently looks really cool, while also being allowed the physical movement necessary for action scenes, but also comedic moments. It's somehow both badass and funny to look at. Considering these suits are based on the Mr. Terrific suit, it stands to reason that it would fit him the best, and it does. This is pretty much a perfect live-action Mr. Terrific design that is nice to look at, doesn't limit movement, and perfectly executes the T-mask to tie it all together. The only thing holding it back is the Lord Tech logo and the fact that while it is a cool design, Mr. Terrific does not have the greatest design. A great Superman suit, for instance, is definitely going to be higher on the list than a great Mr. Terrific suit, but still, this is terrific. If it ain't broke, the original Peacemaker suit, which unfortunately appeared in just one episode in the DCU, is a perfect live-action Peacemaker design. Scratch that, it's the quintessential Peacemaker design in general, outdoing the comics by a long shot. It's high quality, nice to look at, and iconic. The silly helmet just doesn't look silly anymore. It's an iconic look pulled off to perfection. It's wild how this suit was initially controversial, and I don't know, maybe it still is, but I've always liked it, and I like it more and more with time. The colors are really nice, the fit I think is perfect as it's not too tight, but also there's no fake muscle and no need for muscle padding, which many old super suits are guilty of. The trunks add a lot to the overall color scheme scheme and design, and it works perfectly as the suit blends elements from many different comic designs like the New 52, Kingdom Come, or the animated Fleischer suit into one merged design that acts as the look of the DCU Superman. I'd like to see minor changes being made from here on out, but the baseline I think should remain. I'm not sure if I should include this suit on the list, so consider it an honorable mention or number 0. It didn't appear in anything this year except for a trailer, but that trailer is out, and so are posters, so we've gotten good looks at the suit, and it's perfect. The color scheme, the nearly one-to-one design replica from Woman of Tomorrow, the material and the fit. This is the best live-action Supergirl suit, and as of right now, the best suit in the DCU. The villain suits have been consistently less good, like the Captain Triumph suit, which is a completely original design that does look good on paper, but the execution leaves a bit to be desired. David Denman just looks a bit awkward in the suit as the helmet doesn't quite fit him. The rest of the suit ends up being a bit over-designed and not too memorable. I think it's a swing and a miss. The White Rabbit suit is pretty much a one-to-one adaptation with no changes, but at the same time, it's the White Rabbit. She has a pretty awful comic book costume, so yeah, this is as good as she's gonna get. The Engineer suit isn't exactly a good adaptation of the comics, but it is generally high quality and nice to look at, so it works for what it is. The original White Dragon suit barely appeared, so I'm not including it, but the Blue Dragon suit I am including. Overall, the suit is basically the exact same, but worse in every way. The blue doesn't fit as well, and the helmet being blue rather than white I don't think fits the design as well either, but overall it's a fine design. This suit is obviously based on a superhero suit rather than a supervillain suit, but it was originally worn by a villain, and the helmet he wore for the one episode he appeared in is a lot nicer than what our Chris later wore in the season, so it's a pretty nice suit. I honestly don't know which suit I like more, the Hammer of Baravia or Ultraman. They're both completely original designs worn by the same person. They look vastly different, but I think both are executed exactly as well as each other, which is to say that they're both pretty good, not great, but good. I don't think we've gotten a truly great live-action supervillain costume yet. Unless I do count the White Dragon, which is a one-to-one interpretation from the comics, has a great design and a great color scheme, it looks high quality. It just appeared so briefly in this universe that I didn't know if I should include it. So consider it the number 0 placement on the list. The fight between Flag and Frankenstein against Clayface is extremely brutal, well animated, and exciting, using Clayface's unique physiology really creatively and ending in a unique and creative way. Most of that description also fits the fight between the Bride and Cersei, very well animated, very brutal, and very creative. What puts the fight a bit higher is that it is generally a little bit nicer to look at because of the general colors of the scene. Chris absolutely locks in for a fight that makes him seem more competent than ever before or even since, taking several people out in creative and impressive ways. This was exciting and unique and something I wish we got more of in the season. So I'm counting basically the entirety of the third act of Superman. His fights against Ultraman, the Engineer, and the Raptors are exciting and brutal. They show Superman outsmarting his enemies and proving his place in this world's pantheon of heroes, from smashing into the ground to defeat the Engineer, calling Krypto to help defeat Ultraman, and then easily defeating the Raptors. Superman didn't just punch his way out of everything and was allowed to be both powerful and clever, which alongside the incredible music and how it ties in with Lex Luthor's speech, made for a third act that just had me smiling from ear to ear. And it just so happens that the third act was pretty much just one big fight scene. But still, nothing beats a no-cutting, well-choreographed, exciting display of a hero's abilities to an iconic song, as Mr. Terrific's fight scene here is truly terrific. After the reveal that the Blue Dragon does not agree with his government, it seemed like there was going to be a possibility for Chris to finally connect with his father, only for him to be immediately killed. It wasn't that sad, there simply haven't been that many death scenes so far that were sad, but it does make the list because there was something. Man, I really liked Alexei. This just was such a grotesquely brutal and swift murder of a comfort character. I did not like that. G.I. Robot is a unique situation because he's a robot, so he didn't exactly die, plus he came back later, but we didn't know that yet. I genuinely thought G.I. Robot was gone for good, and after an episode of connecting to him, it hits hard. Malik's death is super quick, super dark, and really shocking, as it subverts the Russian roulette trope in a masterful way. This scene single-handedly conveys Lex's peak depravity and Clark's peak humanity, and is genuinely heartbreaking. The best scene in Creature Commandos, the music is emotional and the visuals are powerful as Weasel scrambles to save the kids but ultimately, heartbreakingly, fails. Weasel screeching as he claws at the ground was horrifying and heartbreaking. This scene made me bawl my eyes out. I don't know if it will ever be dethroned as the saddest scene in the DCU. Hey Clown and November Rain are honorable mentions, but the previously mentioned Mr. Terrific fight scene and the song 5 Years Time makes the list, a perfect fit for this scene. I do much prefer the season 1 intro in the song, dance, and visuals, but I also think that I would have been blown away by this intro if the original didn't exist. Speaking of intros, I think I like this one a bit more than Peacemaker Season 2. Meliendo Cafe is super catchy and extremely fitting for the series. Combine that with great visuals of the intro and I never skipped this one. Take Me for a Ride played as Peacemaker left for Earth 2. Not only is it a fantastic song that just got stuck in my head for months now, but it also includes the very fitting lyric of Leave the World Behind, as Chris does exactly that. The scene is also edited to the song's beat, which is so satisfying to watch. The rest are good, but Punk Rocker at the end of Superman is the only musical moment thus far that got an emotional response out of me because of the song. A perfect choice fitting Clark's previous speech and his flat character arc of proving kindness is punk rock, while also being a great sounding song that also got stuck in my head. That adds to the emotional component of the focus on the Kents and their kindness towards Clark. As the camera spun around on Clark's smile, I just so happened to have had the exact same thing on my face, as well as tears falling down my eyes. This right here is what I think sets James Gunn apart as a master of his craft, using music to connect emotionally to the character in a way that no one else can. This isn't just my favorite musical moment of the DCU, but my favorite moment overall.